Alright, so in this video, we'll go through a step-by-step process into implementing incremental updates for Fabric Lakehouse through DataFlow Gen2. So let's first understand what is incremental update. So incremental updates means refreshing the most recent or changed data rather than reloading the entire data set from your source. From your source. So this is required to improve the performance and reduce the resource consumption. It also ensures that the data remains up to date without any data redundancy, which is quite ideal for a huge data sets. So incremental updates for Fabric through DataFlow Gen2 was introduced in third quarter of 2024. So the article that you see on the screen lists down detailed steps of implementing on implementation of the incremental updates. I would say incremental refresh. Most of the steps are quite self-explanatory, but let's go through the most important settings of all. So this is the most important setting that one should be aware of. So the first setting here is it asks you it's you to choose a date time zone column to filter by. So this specifies the column that a data flow should use to filter the data. So this column has to be either a date or a date time zone data type column. The second setting that you see here is extract data from the past. So this specifies how far back in time the data flow should extract data. So example, if you specify 1 month, the data flow returns all the new data from the source system that is within the last 1 month. The next setting is the bucket size. So here there are four options: day, month, week, and year. Right, so the data flow divides the data into buckets based on the duration type. So each bucket contains data that has changed in the last refresh based on the bucket type that is defined. The last setting here is only extract new data when the maximum value in this column changes. So what happens here is that the data flow compares the maximum value in this column to the maximum value in the previous refresh. So for example, the maximum value in your source data is February 11th, and the last refresh maximum value in the last refresh is February 8th. So basically Dataflow would use this column to identify the identify the maximum value. Alright, so if the maximum values change, the data flow returns that data that has changed in the last refresh. Right. So here is one important aspect of this data. Sorry, the of aspect of incremental refresh in DataFlow Gen2. So here it says the following destinations are supported for incremental refresh. So one is the Fabric Lakehouse, second was Fabric Warehouse, second is Azure SQL Database, and third is Azure Synapse Analytics. So you don't see here Fabric Lakehouse. So this is a very huge limitations when it comes to implementing incremental refresh to DataFlow Gen2 in Fabric. So in this video, I'm just going to show you step-by-step process and how we can overcome that limitations and increment and implement a very smooth uh, process by which the incremental updates can be implemented. All right, so this is my source database. So this database is on Azure, and I'm going to use this DB as the source data, and any changes done on this existing data or any newly added data will be moved and replaced into a lakehouse. All right, so let's first let me just do a quick query here. So the table that I'll use here is uh, let me select a table. Okay, I should check for a table that has a data type that has a modified date column. So human resource. Okay, it has a modified date column. Let's select some kind of a fact table. I mean the data that is more identifiable as a fact data. Let's use this sales order header. Okay, it has a modified date. All right, so let's use this. Let's do a count here. And so it should matter. Okay, so it has 31,465 rows. Right. So this is my workspace. So let's first create a DataFlow Gen2 and replicate this existing data onto your lakehouse. Let's first create a lakehouse. I'm going to say incremental refresh, refresh POC. I guess it doesn't like this. Yes. And next, let's create a DataFlow Gen2. Okay, we have. Okay, let's move item. DataFlow Gen2. So this loading the lakehouse, and in the meantime, we can create a DataFlow Gen2 in this tab. What happened here? So we have the lakehouse ready, and I'm not sure what happened. Okay. Incremental data flow. Okay, let's keep it incremental data flow. This is going to take some time, and in the meantime, we will just. I think there's nothing. Okay, so we have this ready. Let's connect to our source data, and we have the server. Let's copy this. Copy. Click next. So we're gonna select header. So inside the header. All right, so we have this source ready, and the first thing that we'll do here is that map this source to the destination. So you can click here, and what's the name of our. So we have incremental refresh POC. Already have these connections ready. So So we have here to select this incremental refresh POC. We are gonna make sure that the source table name and the destination table name are almost similar. We have sales order header here, and here also we are ensuring that the source and destination. Okay, so here we are mapping the columns. Okay, so these are two important settings that you should be aware of. So here we have two options. One is append and one is replace. So when you hover over the append option, so you can see that append data to destination, preserving the existing row. So basically what would happen is that if any, once we have loaded the data, and if there is any changes in the in the source system, so any newly changed data would be appended to the existing data. All right, and opposite happens when you select this option, replace. All right, so since this is going to be a first load, so I will be this shouldn't matter as much, so I'll just keep the option to default, that is replace. All right, so our destiny, the mapping is complete. So let's go ahead and publish the DataFlow Gen2. And in the meantime, let's open the SQL Analytics endpoint for this lakehouse. And how to open this? So the data flow is published. Let's do a quick query. Count 0 from dbo dot. Should have the table here. Okay, still hasn't refreshed yet. So it's 12:31 a.m. Okay, now we should see. Oh, we have the data table here. Sales order header. Yeah, so we have the source and the destination, the record number of records matching across the source and destination. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is that we're just gonna implement an incremental update process. So let's open the data flow. Now here the logic here is that, so what we're gonna do is that we are just gonna create a query wherein the query brings in the maximum modified date from the lakehouse. All right, let's make a copy first. Let's take a copy of the lakehouse, and then we can modify the query for that lakehouse. It's gonna select our newly created lakehouse. Still says connecting to incremental lakehouse. So, and here we're gonna select the sales order header table, and we say select. Alright, now here I want to pick up the maximum modified date that exists in the lakehouse, in this lakehouse. So I'll click on the advanced editor. I'll make a few changes here. So I will say max is equal to list dot max of navigation one modified date, and it should return underscore max. Yeah, that's all we have to do here. Yeah. So now what has happened here is that it has returned the maximum date that exists in our sales order header lakehouse. Alright, the next step here would be to filter out the dates that are greater than this value. Filter out the dates in the source database, that is in your Azure database, that is greater than the value returned by this query. Let me rename this query so that it's more sensible to understand. This, disable this and rename max lake house. No, sorry, max lake house modif- modified date data modified date. So okay, so the next thing that we'll do is filter out the dates that are greater than this modified date from our lake house. So we'll have to modify. We have to add a filter to the modified date column, which is, where is that? Okay, it's here. We'll say after. So select a query, and here we'll have this option max modified. So now in our source database, we'll select the max modified as a column name and max modified date. Okay, from sales, not sales order header. So the max modified date that we have in our source data is this 2nd February, 5 5 p.m., around little more than 5 p.m. And in our lake house, I'll just copy this query, skip this, just paste this, and remove earlier DDO. So it's the same. All right. So what I'll do here is now I'll update one of the modified dates for an existing sales order ID. Top 100 start from order by one DSC. So we'll modify and modified date. Let me add this column here. Modified date, comma. Yeah, it's for this order ID. So it's 75123. Okay, let's modify the modified date for this column. Date, set modified date is equal to get date. Now, sales order ID is equal to 75123. And so we have a new modified date for 751 order ID 75123. All right, now let's go back. Okay, there's some issue here. Okay, we'll say let's ignore privacy settings. Okay, now as you can see here, our data filtered for this column, sorry, this source is 75123. That was that the one that we updated just now. So you can see that row here. So the modified date here would be equal to this as the modified date. Yep, it is the same. 7 5 10 30. Yep, is it the same? uh, yeah, it is same, sorry. 1900 is 7 p.m, right? So yeah, so it is the same. Now next thing we have to do is that we have to change the settings wherein we are now, earlier we had selected an option where we are replacing the data. Now we'll have to change that option to append the existing data. So what would happen is that if we run it as is with the replace option, the existing data from a lakehouse would be deleted and only this row would be inserted into a lakehouse. Sorry, where is that option? Let me think. Okay, it is in the query settings. And we have to go. No, sorry, I just, okay, we have to select here. Yeah, it's an option here. Sorry, here, edit, select next. Let's do a quick, just to ensure that data is not, it's not the same. Okay. Okay, let's go back here. We'll see next. No, sorry, I should have selected an existing table. Okay, let me go back. Uh, I should select an existing table, and in the existing table, I select sales order header. Next, and we'll say append. Save settings. Okay, now we are all ready. So I'll just publish this. So last refresh was on 12:31 a.m. Now it's 12:45 a.m. Just ensure that the data is not truncated. Okay, so it's published. Okay, the refresh has started. Let's ensure that the okay, we still have 3145465 rows because it takes time, right, for the newly added data or refresh data to be available on the through SQL endpoint. So it's still refreshing. Okay, the refresh is complete. Okay, um, not sure we have to wait. We have no other option. We still have 31465 rows. And the SQL endpoint. No, still pointing to. Yep, now we have 3 1. I'm not sure. Does this require a refresh here? Because as soon as I refresh, the data was available. That's strange. Yep. So now we have an modified date that matches to the modified date from our source data. Let's do a quick query for sales order ID 75123. Where- So now we should have two rows for the same sales order ID. The one that was before the update and one that is after the update. Yeah, so you have two rows now. Yes, add modified date. So you'll have two modified dates. So this is the latest one, and this is the one prior to the update. Right, let's check for some other order ID to ensure that there's no duplication for other order IDs. Yep, there's no duplication for any. Let's randomly select some random. Okay, let's select 75032. Okay, we have okay. So just to double check if there are no duplications for other order IDs. Yeah. So now what we can do is that we can put this in a part of a data flow. Sorry, I'm saying data flow. Part of an pipeline, data pipeline, and then we can add a notebook wherein we delete the duplicate data. So I already have a script ready for the notebook where all these things happen, where we can deduplicate the data. So I'll just create a quick notebook here. So we'll have to first connect to a lake house and to existing lake house with this one. Okay, why is this not some what happened here? I should select this option. Okay, so okay, so it's this. Close this. Okay. So I already have this script ready wherein the data would it would deduplicate the data. So we are using the row number function here, the Windows row number function, and the partitioning would be on the modified date. Sorry, partitioning would be on sales order ID, sales order ID ordered by modified date descending. So we have so that by this we would only have the latest date in for any duplicate data. We'll only have the modified date that is the most recent modified date. All right, I'll just run this. Just okay, says succeeded. Let's query the data. Okay, it did not delete sales order. I don't know. Okay, again, it's gonna take some time, I guess, for the data to be visible on the endpoint, analytics endpoint. Yeah. So as you can see, we have only the latest updated modified data available, and the older data get deleted for the given sales order ID. And we'll just do a quick count. Just copy this. Yeah. All right. So basically, there's a match between the source data and your destination data. 31465. All right, and so insert also should work well with this approach because we are just appending the data and no need to do an deduplication of the data. If I mean, it's a good practice to do a deduplication after every operation, but I don't see a reason to do that in case of a newly added data. All right, so that's all for this walkthrough. I mean, this has been a very long walkthrough. Yeah, all right. So if you do have any questions or suggestions, do let me know. Thank you very much.